Welcome into Pac-12 in review. What a weekend it was in the Pac-12. Yes, I am Michael Caratanuto. Hit me up on Twitter at Diablo00. And man, we had a battle of ranked teams. We had a battle of two ranked teams facing off, UCLA and Utah. USC obviously was ranked 6th coming into their game, and Washington was ranked 21st and came into to Tempe. So that being said, it was again a very fun week in the Pac-12, to say the least. We had a few blowouts. We had one blowout, an insane comeback on a double-digit lead, an insane comeback and 1-point victory, an upset of a number 21 team, like I said, 2 ranked teams, and USC pulling away in the end is what we had in the Pac-12. And just to remind all of you, as the new rankings came out, they come out on Sundays, as we all know. And there's been a little shift in where the Pac-12 teams are in the AP poll. USC, they actually won, but of course dropped because, they're a Pac-12 school. They dropped one spot to number 7. Which baffles me because they won. But let's just drop them to number 7. And so they're at number 7. UCLA went up to number 11 with their win over Utah. They took Utah's spot. Basically, they swapped spots with Utah. They went all the way up to number 11 from number 18. Oregon, they won, but of course, they stay at number 12 because, it's a Pac-12 school. Wouldn't want to reward them for winning. And Utah dropped from 11 to 20. They are 4-2. And with that loss, they to UCLA, again, their second loss of the season, first conference loss. They lose at the Rose Bowl. They fall to number 20. So very interesting, especially with USC, because like I said, they won 30-14, and they shut Washington State out, who's been playing very good ball in the second half. So, but we will start with the UCLA-Utah game. 42-32 was the final, and I said on Friday, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, again, yes, he can throw the ball. And I know I mentioned, obviously, what he can do running, but what he's done throwing the ball in Chip Kelly's offense, which he has such a great command for. And I know I touched on that on Friday, but still, it's one of those things where when you look at UCLA offensively, yes, Dorian Thompson-Robinson has them absolutely rolling, but he was 18 for 23, 299 yards, 4 touchdowns, and he threw for 1 interception. So having the 1 interception, but 4 touchdowns. He's completed 18 passes. 4 of those were touchdowns. Zach Charbonnet, what did I say? I go, this young man is perfect for Chip Kelly's offense. I referenced back to when he was at Oregon. Everybody said, oh, the spread, you're just flinging the ball around the field, the high pace, the tempo. And it's based off of the running backs. And I hope you did your homework and went back and looked at what his running backs did at Oregon. Because that was, again, the running backs he had and what they did. But Zach Charbonnet, look at this kid, 22 touches again, 198 yards, 1 touchdown, averaging 9 yards a carry. So just an inkling under a first down a carry. Absolutely insane to do against this Utah defense. And I know, I said back in game 1 against Florida that Utah gave up 283 yards rushing, and that was very, very odd to see from a Utah defense, first game of the season or not. But Chardonnay had 198. UCLA had 203 overall. Thompson is because Utah had 2 sacks on the game, so that's obviously included. But Thompson had 11 carries for 8 yards. He also did have a rushing touchdown, so 5 total touchdowns for Dorian Thompson-Robinson. And man, Utah got a late touchdown. It was 42-25, I think, with 3.5 minutes left in the fourth, maybe 4 minutes left in the fourth. Let's just go there. And Utah did get a late score to make it 42-32, but they both scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. And UCLA, again, that their defense too, though. I mean, you look at defensively, 2 sacks, 3 tackles for losses. Cam Rising for Utah did throw an interception. Darius Muasau had the interception for the Bruins. It's just an overall solid game. Kicking wise too, when I watched this game, Casimir Allen had 3 kickoff returns for 103 yards. Field position. You'll play that game, that matchup all day long. So, but yeah, 42-32 is the final to that game. And for Utah, on the side, Cam Rising, this UCLA defense did a really good job, I will say, of in coverage, making sure everything was in front of them. And Rising went 22 for 32. So good game there. 287 yards, but he threw no touchdowns and did throw the interception that I mentioned. Tavion Thomas, again, a team that is going to stay patient with the run. And they had a very solid game on the ground. Tavion Thomas, 18 carries for 91 yards, and he hit pay dirt once. Cam Rising, not throwing a passing touchdown, but he had 13 carries for 59 yards and 2 touchdowns. And to me, on Friday, I said that's another key to the game because he's been near the top or the top of the leaderboard for Utah rushing. So for Cam Rising, you look at it, a solid game. UCLA, again, playing coverage, didn't want him to go crazy, but through the air, but let alone, threw for 287, rushed for 59, 2 rushing touchdowns for Cam Rising. So it was a solid performance from him and Tavion Thomas again. And they rushed for, like I said, 192 yards. So just 9 less yards than what UCLA did. But UCLA, the difference being the first quarter. They shut Utah out in the first quarter, a 7-0 after 1. It was a 14-10 at halftime. Then it was 28-18 going into the third, and then or at the end of the third, pardon me. It's 28-18 in favor of UCLA at the end of the third. And then, like I said, they both put up 14 in the fourth. 42-32 is the final, and the Bruins 6-0. 3-0 in conference play, get the victory. And, for Chip Kelly, like I said, the whispers and the hot seat, did I think he should be on there? No. But, hey, that's just me. And when you look at 6-0, 3-0 in conference play, it's mind-boggling to me that they were able to hang with and control Utah like this, because Utah defensively, I know Oregon State, yes, they won 42-16 at home, and it was huge. Oh, by the way, Clark Phillips III for Utah had the 3 interceptions last week, was tied for, leading the Pac-12 and tied for the first in the nation. He did have the 1 interception of Dorian Thompson-Robinson, and that puts him at 5 for the year. So Clark Phillips III, again, if you're going to challenge him, good luck is all I'm saying. Seeing him play here in Tempe as well, just the way the secondary played. So he has his 5th pick of the year. But yeah, for Chip Kelly, again, a very huge win for the Bruins, and they were able to, again, withstand. And yes, it was a home game, but still they were able to withstand Utah's charge in the 4th quarter and to consistently put points up throughout the game. Like I said, 7 in the first, 7 in the second, and then 14 each in the 3rd and 4th quarter. You don't see that against the Utah defense too much. So yes, they are scored on them. It's not like I'm saying, oh, they shut everybody out and this is a total shock. But the fact that they were able to keep them in check-ish and have answers, like I said, lead from wire to wire on Utah, that, especially the last few years, is unheard of. So definitely hats off to Chip Kelly and his Bruins team. Like I said, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Zach Charbonnet, this young man. Again, I know it's become a quarterback award, but, man, you go 6-0, you jump 9 spots. You jump 9 spots or 7 spots, pardon me. They jumped up 7. Utah dropped down 9. So, and Washington completely dropped out of the top 25, and we'll get to that. But you do that, and man, it's it's very very solid. So I look at it for again, overall win for UCLA, huge. Yes, keeps them undefeated. Yes, keeps them up top in the Pac-12 race, because this year it's not North and South champions. I know I mentioned that in the first show, and I keep kind of forgetting to mention that. The top 2 teams, whether they're both out of the North or both out of the quote-unquote North or quote-unquote South, the top 2 teams are going to play in the Pac-12 championship game. So a little bit that the Pac-12 switched up this year. I'm torn. Again, like I always say, I'm definitely for, development, evolution, making things better in a sport. But I don't know. I just think the South champ deserves to play the North champ. Like, it makes sense. You have the 2, and the other conferences do it that way too. And again, just because the other conferences do it doesn't make it, right. Whether you feel it's right, wrong, or indifferent, just because they do it doesn't make it right. But it just makes sense. If you're going to have divisions, then the top team in the division, and to me, that's just the second place team in each division crying sour grapes. You didn't beat the team in front of you, ahead of you. So even if the team from the North or the South has a worse record, you didn't beat the team in front of you. So that's kind of why I'm torn. That being said, though, either way, standings, by the way, in the Pac-12. So USC 4-0, 6-0, 4-0 in conference, 6-0 overall. UCLA, they're 3-0, 6-0 overall. Oregon, with their win, they're 3-0, 5-1 overall. Utah 2-1, 4-2 overall. And then Cal is 1-1 in conference play, 3-2 overall. Arizona State got their first conference win. So Arizona State, Oregon State, Washington State, and Arizona are all 1-2 in conference play. ASU is 2-4 overall. Oregon State's 4-2 overall. Washington is 4-2 overall, as is Washington State. Arizona is 3-3. Colorado and Stanford still yet to win a Pac-12 game. Colorado 0-2. Well, they were on bye, but Colorado 0-2, Stanford 0-4. Colorado's 0-5, Stanford 1-4 overall. So those are the standings. But again, UCLA, huge win for the Bruins, man. They again, looking good. And not that Utah isn't. I think Utah can definitely rebound from this. And for UCLA, when upcoming schedule, just get to the whole Pac-12 schedule after this, but they have a bye and their next game is October 22nd. So it's a Thursday night game, and they're up in Eugene. So the last two have been at home. It's been pretty good for them. And now they get a bye, get to get a little nicks and bruises, as coaches always like to say, healed up. And then they get to go to another tough one at 12th ranked. Well, Oregon's 12th ranked right now, but that is where the Bruins are heading for Utah. For the Utes, they get to take on USC this Saturday. So they are taking on USC Saturday, but this game is in Salt Lake City, Rice-Eccles Stadium. So get to that in a minute. But yeah, so that's where Utah is going next week. They will be at USC. They will be home, against USC. So, hey, again, big one of the week. I said it, 11-18 coming in. UCLA wins. They jump up to number 11. And it's interesting because watching, college football shows, listening to stuff, and a lot of analysts that thought that UCLA would win the game also said that it was actually – they stood the most to gain from this game. And you see in the AP poll, like I said, jumping 7 spots. If they beat Oregon, and granted it's after a bye, and we'll see what Oregon does next week, but the whole, if you kind of project out, if they beat Oregon in Eugene and say Oregon wins and they're, number 10 or number 9, number 8 above them, like I said, depending on what happens, UCLA beats them up there. You got to be inside the top 10, and I'm thinking hanging at the top 5. Again, people can say what they want, and when they try to bring up UCLA schedules, find me on Twitter at Diablo00 because I'll fire back the top 4 or 5 teams in the country. I'll fire back their schedules, and we can go from there. But absolutely huge for UCLA getting the 42-32 victory. We're going to step aside real quick. And then when I get back, we will hit the other 2 ranked teams, USC and 3 ranked teams, USC, Oregon, and Washington, and what they did in their games here on Pac-12 in Review on the Sideline Sports Network. We'll be back after this. All right, back here on Pac-12 in Review. Again, game first hit was the UCLA-Utah game. UCLA gets a 42-32 victory. They jump 7 spots in the AP poll, all the way up from 18 to 11. So that is a huge jump. Very, very awesome for the Bruins. The Utes, on the other hand, go down to 20, but showing if they can still win, they can climb back up. So, again, it'll be very interesting down the stretch. But our next game that we are going to look at is number 6, USC, who won but dropped a spot, of course. But that's the AP's doing that this year too, which, again, I'll get in on too actually on Friday. In the preview show, how it's just absolutely dumb, even at the top of the rankings, because it's ridiculous. Anyway, that being said, UCLA gets the 30-14 win over Washington State. And the Cougars, well, it was 17-14 at half. It was 10-0 after one in favor of UCLA. Washington State, a strong second quarter, outscored the Trojans 14-7, but it was 17-14 at half. And then the Trojans shut out the Cougars in the second half, third and fourth quarter. Second quarter, only quarter, to overstate the obvious that I'm telling you, that Washington State scored. But yeah, and then SC put up another 13 in the second half, won 30-14. Goes from wire to wire winning, but yet they drop a spot. And when you look at what Caleb Williams did this week, again, a little bit of a different, definitely a different, different numbers than he put up against Arizona State. But Arizona State, I mean, shut down, pretty much controlled, shut down the run against USC. But Caleb Williams, nonetheless, 15 for 29, 188 yards. Nothing to really write home about, but he did throw 2 touchdowns. And those were both 2. Again, Mario Williams had a heck of a game, 4 for 82. Jordan Addison, a little bit quiet. He's been, 3 for 37, 12.3 a catch. Not bad, obviously, but Mario Williams was the man that was open, and Caleb Williams got him the ball. So the Williams to Williams connection there. But yeah, Mario had 4 for 82. He had both of the receiving touchdowns. But the man that wanted to bounce back, he did have 2 touchdowns, again, against the Sun Devils, but they held him to 62 yards. And Travis Dye has not been contained like that pretty much the whole season. And he got back on track. Lincoln Riley made it made it a point, obviously, in the offense to get him the ball. He had 28 carries for 149 yards, 5.3 a carry, and he had 1 touchdown. He also did add 3 catches. He had 3 catches for 18 yards as well. So 167 total yards for Travis Dye. Not a bad day there. But yeah, you knew after the 62-yard gain that they wanted to send a message, of course, and get him back on track as well. And again, 2 touchdowns is a heck of a game when you see the 62 yards and the carries. Like I said, not the best, but look, Caleb Williams has looked great. And I know I said, obviously, Lincoln Riley came in. There's quite a few new coaches that came into the Pac-12 back in the first weekend. I talked about it, and he's kind of like, the shiny object. Again, deservedly so. Look what he did, obviously, under Bob Stoops at Oklahoma. Then when Bob Stoops, stepped aside in the late summer, they promoted Lincoln Riley to head coach. And, of course, what does he do? That offensive line that they always seem to build up at Oklahoma, although I took a beating against Texas in the Red River Showdown this last weekend. Heisman Trophy winners at quarterback. You see the receivers. So, yeah, Lincoln Riley, what he can do offensively. Caleb Williams entered the transfer portal, went around, and obviously reunited with his coach at USC. So, yeah, again, all the accolades. I'm not picking on Lincoln Riley, obviously. I'm not making fun of USC, just saying, they get the big coach and they should be ranked. And it helps in the rankings, obviously not when you win and you drop a spot. But, hey, you know what? Nonetheless, it's too much analytics going into it, probably. But that's neither here nor there. So, yeah, Caleb Williams and the USC defense, too. 5 sacks in this game and 9 tackles for losses. So, even though the Huskies did, they rushed for 144 yards. Cameron Ward, the quarterback, who, has played well and has been consistent, but 19 for 32, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns, did throw an interception. But the 5 sacks, like I said, by the Trojans, who were leading the Pac-12 in sacks, and they were tied for first in the nation coming into this last weekend. So again, keeping pace right there. We'll get to that, more of that on Friday. But yeah, for Cam Ward, like I said, 19 for 32, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns. Man, Jalen Jenkins, 13 carries for this young man, 130 yards. Yes, a first down a carry. So they were moving the ball between the 30s, as you can see, between the 20s, if you want to say, but not able to close out. And when you look at punting wise, they punted 7 times. USC punted 5 times. No field goal attempts. And to me, it's just a definite, defensive beatdown, as when you look at it, it's especially to shut somebody out in the second half. I know I'm overstating the obvious. But man, I can't look at it and think, for Washington State, when you look at it, first downs, Washington State had 17, USC had 23. Third down efficiency, Washington State 4 for 13, USC 6 for 15. So both kind of hanging around there. Fourth down, so USC was perfect. They were 1 for 1. Washington State was 1 for 2. So this defense, again, balled out, kept them out of the end zone. Again, 2 fourth down tries. They stopped them on one of them, getting a turnover on downs, which is absolutely huge. But yeah, for Jalen Jenkins, again, 13 for 130, 10 yards a carry. But it was just, USC was obviously getting a little bit gouged there, but they're chewing up so much of the clock and they're not getting any points. So that's very dejecting for Washington State, to say the least. But yeah, the Trojans showing that their offense and their defense, look, like I said, 5 sacks. And yes, you did give up 172 yards or 144 yards rushing, 130 to one man who was having his way, and his long of the day was 41. Yes, you did keep him out of the end zone. And that was, huge, obviously very huge to do, but their defense, again, it's a work in progress. The offense, yes, with Caleb Williams, how he can throw, if he needs to scramble, being elusive. It's USC's offense, again, that offensive line too. It all starts, and you know me, it all starts up front with the Hogs. And that offensive line is definitely a beast to deal with. Of the Trojans is a beast to deal with. So, but yeah, I mean, and then you look at the receiving touchdowns. Robert Farrell, who had 3 catches for 15 yards, he had the 1 touchdown, and then Nakia Watson, the running back, who had 2 carries for 13 yards, but he also had 2 receptions for 7 yards, and the other touchdown. So again, if you're not getting in the end zone, I know, crazy, split me out of here, you're not going to win. But to run like that, to have Jenkins rush like that, but just the defense to extremely bend, but not break at all, and then pitch the shutout in the second half. Whew. I mean, they shut him out 3 or 4 quarters, So you look at that, USC, yes, I said their defense could be had. You see somebody rush for 130 yards. Quarterback only threw for 172, but Cam Ward did throw the 2 touchdowns. But yeah, like I said, 5 sacks for USC, 1 sack for Washington State. Again, there were no interceptions in this game. Both quarterbacks staying clean there. It's just, again, solid performance and another improving performance for the USC defense. Hats off to them, because we know the offense is ahead of their defense, and it'll be very tested, I will say this, next week when they play at Utah on Saturday night. That is going to be an insane game. So yeah, USC taking on Utah next Saturday night. For the Cougars, well, they get to go. They stay there. They stay very close in the Pacific Northwest. They are headed to Corvallis to take on Oregon State. So, but again, hats off to SC. Number 6 gets the win over Washington State. So I thought Washington State might upset them. And then again, it wasn't because of what happened the week before. I thought Washington State might upset them, but they did not. So that being said, hey, hats off. SC's undefeated and rolling in the Pac-12. The next game we have to review is, and it'll be kind of quick. Sorry, one of these teams' fans, but Oregon I said they needed to shut down Jaden DeLora and for Arizona, and they did just that. Oregon beats the Wildcats 49-22. It was 7-3 after one in favor of the Ducks, and then it was 28-13 at half in favor of the Ducks. And then it was 49-16 after 3 in favor of the Ducks, and the only quarter the Ducks didn't score in the fourth, but they're just again controlling it. Arizona did put up 6 points, so the Ducks were number 12. They cruised to a 49-22 victory. Bo Nix, I must give him another hats off, gold star to him. 20 for 25. Only had to throw 25 passes, but for 265 yards. Now, the crazy thing is he did not throw a touchdown in that. They didn't have any receiving touchdowns, receiving touchdowns. They had all rushing touchdowns. He passed for 274, right? You're like, wow, they couldn't have rushed for that much more, right? Maybe 150. The Ducks rushed for 306 yards, kids. Let that settle in. 306. Noah Whittington touched it 6 times, 92 yards, 1 touchdown. Bo Nix, the quarterback, he rushed it 8 times, 70 yards, 3 touchdowns. Jordan James, 10 carries for 69 yards, 1 touchdown. Bucky Irving got in on the action, 12 for 67 and 1 touchdown for Bucky Irving. And Moliki Mataveo had 1 carry for 3 yards, but that was his only carry, his long of the day, and a touchdown. 7 rushing touchdowns. That is ultimate domination for the number 12 team in the country. Yes, who has a brutal loss to, I think, number 2 now, Georgia in the AP poll, maybe number 3, because they keep changing it, even if they win. And if they, if somebody kind of struggles and they have to blow people, it's ridiculous. But anyway, yes, a tough loss to Georgia is their only loss since then. Bo Nix, again, who was staring down guys. And I thought, man, how do you not play Ty Thompson if you're Dan Lanning coming in? You have this quarterback and look, I haven't been a big Bo Nix fan. I mean, saw how his time at Auburn went. Not the best, but hey, man, when I got to give hats off and compliment, I do it. So Bo Nix, you were definitely a star of the week. 265 passing, 70 rushing, 3 rushing touchdowns, 7 rushing touchdowns for the Ducks. The Arizona run defense, yes, I know against Colorado is one thing when they get the win. Even against Cal, I mean, they gave up some rushing, but it wasn't like to this level. So Oregon's offense, man, absolutely insane. Receiving wise, Stephen McGee led the team in receptions. He had 4 for 34. Chris Hudson had 2 for 60. Chase Cota, 3 for 60. Troy Franklin, 3 for 38. Like I said, McGee, 4 for 34. Bucky Irving added another 3 receptions. He had 3 for 30. Terrence Ferguson, 2 for 19. So again, nothing huge, but it came up to 274 yards rushing to 306 yards rushing. I mean, wow. So that is 581 total yards for the Ducks. 580 for the Ducks. I mean, and Arizona, think of this. Arizona had 356 total yards. They had 356 total yards. So not a bad game. You gave up 580. Jaden DeLora came back down a little bit to earth against that Oregon defense, that very speedy Oregon defense. He was 24 for 42, 241 yards, 1 touchdown, did also throw 1 interception, and that was to Jahil Florence, who had the pick for the Ducks. But yeah, 24 for 42, 241, 1 touchdown, 1 pick. Rushing wise, Jonah Coleman, 9 for 74. DJ Williams had 6 for 65. And then you had Michael Wiley at 6 for 10. The Oregon defense did have 2 sacks, 5 tackles for losses. But yeah, they rushed for 115 yards. They rushed for 115 yards, did the Wildcats. So again, Jaden DeLora not playing bad, but you have 1 turnover and or 1 interception. And they also had 2 fumbles that they lost. Jacob Cowing lost 1. Jaden DeLora lost the other. So you're looking at 3 turnovers, 3 free possessions for the Ducks, and pretty much lights out for the Wildcats from there. So the Ducks improved to 5-1 overall, 3-0 in conference play. Arizona goes to 1-2, but they're 3-3. They're at 500. So Wildcats fans, again, it's not about everybody deserves a trophy, silver lining, but with as ugly as it's been the last 4 or 5 years, like 3-3 right now, you're like, all right, but let's get some more wins in the Pac-12. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, Oregon, they will, like I said, they improved to 3-0, and then in conference play, 5-1 overall. They are taking on again. Well, they also have the bye this week. Both UCLA and them have the bye since they play that Thursday night game on. Or no, they play Saturday night. Sorry, not Thursday night. They play UCLA on the 22nd. So yeah, so they both have a bye, and they both come into that game. Well, we'll see where they're ranked. Since they didn't play, they'll probably drop because hey, it's their fault they have a bye. So analytically, they should drop in the rankings. Anyway, but yeah, so October 22nd, huge game for Oregon as they host UCLA. As for the Wildcats, they next week get to take on the Washington Huskies up in Seattle. So we'll see what the Wildcats can do up there. But that is where the 1 and 2 Wildcats in conference, 3-3 overall. That's where they are headed. They are headed up to Seattle for that game. And next up, I know I said ranking wise. So next up, going to have a little fun with this. Yes, I am. As you can see, the Sun Devils hosted the 21st ranked Huskies after they came off that loss in Pasadena to UCLA, right? ASU's hosting them. It's tough. They're down. They open up conference play back to back with 2 ranked teams and 3 ranked teams actually, but they open up conference play losing to Utah at home, losing to USC on the road, which they played a lot better than they did against Utah. Had a chance. SC, as we know, got it in the end. Come home to take on the Huskies, leading the Pac-12 in yards per game, 506.6 total yards. And the Sun Devils come out with the 45-38 shootout victory. And man, what a day it was. Because Michael Penix Jr., the transfer from Indiana, man, this kid, he had, again, a very, very solid day. ASU got back to running the ball with X-Valaday. And unfortunately, Emory Jones went out, but backup quarterback. Everybody's I made the joke during the game on Twitter. Everybody's favorite player, most popular person on campus is in the game, the backup quarterback. And I had to explain as a joke because I didn't need people adding me, because that's one of the oldest jokes I heard. It's like, oh, who's everybody's favorite player? Who's fans' favorite player on the team? Well, the backup quarterback, because if the quarterback's doing bad, they're like, oh, he needs to be in. It's like you elevate the backup to so much. Again, I digress, though. Trenton Bourguet had to come in, and man, he was calm, cool, collected, and ASU was down 7-3 after the first quarter, but they were up 24-17 at halftime. And then they were up 38-31 going into the fourth. And then each team scored a touchdown in the fourth, but ASU gets the 45-38 victory. So again, when we look at the box score, like I said, Emory Jones, before he got hurt, and again, the guy was called for targeting, and Washington fans were annoyed. And look, I get it. I've been on here. I'm not going to talk out of both sides of my mouth saying, oh, this and that. The rules are for the offense. But the slide, when a quarterback goes into a slide, and even at the pro level, like I find it like just Bush League and ridiculous that you see a guy is sitting down and you dive in at him. Like, I'm sorry, he's giving himself up. You should be penalized. You should be ejected. It's just, if you were a quarterback sliding in, somebody flying full speed at you, and they see you sliding, and again, it's not a sideline play, because hear me out. A sideline play, I go nuts for defenders. I'm like, what? I'm like, how are you supposed to defy physics and stop? Now, yeah, if a guy's 3 yards out of bounds, 4 yards out of bounds, and it's that egregious, yes. But right on the sideline, and if a foot goes, the receiver or back's foot, goes out, and the defender is literally running full speed and hits him right as the foot is out. I get the protection of the player. That's ridiculous. But sliding, no. Washington fans, you have nothing. You lose your starting safety, that's on him. You need to be smarter, especially on sliding plays. So they were saying, oh, it should have just been a late hit, not targeting. He's in a sliding position. So it's basically he's sitting down, and you come in, and it's a shoulder, it's a hit. So he gets the targeting. But Emory Jones had to go out of the game. So again, I have no problem with Washington's safety being ejected for that. But nonetheless, Trenton Bourguet comes in. But Emory Jones, I was going to say, he was 7 for 9 for 59 yards before he went out, looking good. And moving the ball. Trenton Bourguet comes in, 15 for 21, 182 yards. Okay, you're thinking, not going to jump off the screen at you numbers-wise, but again, comes in, 3 touchdowns, throws for 3, did have an interception, but man, just phenomenal job by, again, the I want to say fifth year senior, and everything this young man has been through anyway. But being an Arizona kid, Coach Iguano, the interim head coach, has talked about that. We'll get to that more on Friday. But Trenton Bourguet, 15 for 21, 180 yards, 3 touchdowns, the 1 pick, you'll take that. Valade, talked about him, man, wanting to get him back on track. 23 carries for 111 yards, 4.8 a carry, 1 rushing touchdown. Daniel Magada, man, has been big in the return game the last 2 weeks. Kickoff returns, getting the team good field position. But he also the running back, 4 carries for 39 yards. He had a rushing touchdown. So, and they rushed for 156 yards. Like I said, 111 on Valade, but man, you can see just, again, kid just absolutely crushing it and getting in. When he's in a rhythm, they get him into a rhythm. Coach Iguano talked about being aggressive, but even talking to Glenn Thomas, the offensive coordinator, being, getting him involved in the game. But yes, you be aggressive, but man, seeing X getting those carries, getting the yards against this Washington defense, huge. So they rushed for 156, 2 rushing touchdowns. Like I said, 1 each by Valade and Daniel Nagata. Receiving wise, Brian Thompson, man, this kid, he talked about, working hard in practice, and, you got to waiting your turn. Yes, getting open, doing stuff. But Brian Thompson, man, 3 catches for 78 yards. Solid performance by him. Giovanni Sanders, 5 catches for 54 yards. Elijah Badger, Trenton Bourguet, again, picked up quite a few big first downs throwing to Badger. 7 catches for 53 yards. He had 2 of the 3 receiving touchdowns. Valade, 1 rushing touchdown. Oh, by the way, also 1 receiving touchdown, 4 catches for 22 yards and the 14-yard touchdown reception. So again, they throw for 240, run one, rush for 156, no fumbles lost, and one interception. Defensively, one sack, but 3 tackles for losses. Jordan Clark. Oh, this is it was so phenomenal because Washington, Michael Penix moving the ball. Washington's moving the ball. Penix is looking, they're rushed. They're getting some pressure on him. He didn't look crazy comfortable in the pocket, but did throw the ball 53 times. But he attempts this pass. It gets batted up in the air. And you're watching on TV and you're sitting there, even a fan watching at the stadium, you're like, oh, batted up. And you're like, oh, man, maybe somebody can get to it. It got batted up. And as I'm watching, Jordan Clark just sprints. I mean, he's sprinting, catches the ball, takes it in for the pick six. He hit pay dirt. It was awesome to see that play. But he said, I asked him, I go, how long did it seem like that ball was in the air? He goes, I knew I was running full speed. I was sprinting. I was getting it. But he goes, man, it did seem like it was in the air forever. And so, yeah, he takes it, dials up the house call, and they get a defensive touchdown. But Michael Penix Jr., which obviously huge, because you look at that, swing of possession, and that's the 7-point victory right there. If not, we're maybe, tied at 38, going to overtime, seeing what happens in the madness of overtime. But Michael Penix Jr., look, like I said, and again, another solid performance, but 33 for 53. I mean, threw it 53 times, 311 yards, no touchdowns, though. And the one, like I said, the interception, which, again, in this day and age, it did get batted. So yes, they say, oh, was it his fault? But yeah, I mean, the pass is right there. Defensive lineman is right there, and it gets knocked up in the air. So no touchdowns. And like I said, the pick six to Jordan Clark. Rushing wise, though, Cameron Davis, 9 for 77. Wayne Talapapa, 12 for 51. Richard Newton, 4 for 42. They had 33 carries overall for 134 yards. And like I said, the Sun Devils threw in a sack there as well. Cause Michael Penix Jr., 3 carries, -6 yards. Rome Odunze, the receiver, had 1 carry. And that was on a 4th and 1. That's a crazy, crazy call. If you're thinking the review, 4th and 1, and you have a 6-foot, 4-inch quarterback, and you go with the jet sweep. And I got to give props to Merlin Robertson for sniffing that out. ASU stops them huge there on a 4th and 1 in Sun Devil territory for the Huskies. And man, that was a huge stop, a 3-yard loss. And again, like I said, a jet sweep to Odunze, who, again, reception wise, this kid, didn't get in the end zone, but still 9 catches for 115 yards, 12.8 per. I said he was going to be defensively. You need to kind of bracket this guy. I'm like, he is going to get his catches, but yeah, 9 for 115, but to keep him out of the end zone and no passing touchdowns for the Huskies. Yes, 5 rushing touchdowns. I get it. Cam Davis, like I said, 9 for 77, 3 touchdowns. Talapapa had 12 for 51 in the 1 touchdown. And the other touchdown to Michael Penix Jr. Who got in, I want to say it was like a 1 yard, 1 or 2 yard, 1 yard quarterback sneak type play. So again, they had 5 rushing touchdowns, but through the air, Sun Devil secondary, again, there were little blips here and there. You say, well, 353 passing, or 311 passing, but still he had to throw 53 times. So you'll take that. And when you put up 45, it's it's a very good thing. It's for ASU. So they go to 2-4 overall. Coach Iguano gets his first win as interim head coach for Kalen DeBoer and the Huskies. So, like I said, this defense, which didn't have any sacks, and like I said, they came in with 16 sacks. They had no sacks and 3 tackles for losses for ASU. Again, you don't like to see those plays, but you can live with that. Emory Jones, like I said, didn't get hurt on a sack. It was a running play. And for Trenton Bourguet, to keep his jersey pretty clean. Yeah, he got hit a few times on some throws. Actually, one of the touchdown pass, I want to say it was to Badger. Yeah, one of Elijah Badger's 2 touchdowns. He got hit, but Badger came open, and he stepped up, made the throw, took a hit. But, yeah, the offensive line after that, and they even lost Darius Henderson. He left the game, didn't come back. Saw him back on the sideline during the game. So, but for Kellen DeBoer and the Huskies, again, you're still in it. Their next, again, they have the same conference record as ASU. Their next game is, like I said, they host Arizona at 2:30. Well, 5:30 Eastern, 2:30 here on the left coast on the Pac-12 network. They host Arizona up in Seattle. And for ASU, they have a bye. ASU is on bye this week, and then they will return. And they have a bye. And then they are at Stanford on the 22nd. So a bye this week. And they are up at Palo Alto, a very winnable game for the Sun Devils as they take on the Stanford Cardinal in that matchup. And that leads me to, last but not least, the last game, Stanford and Oregon State. And man, this was absolutely insane. So Stanford is up 17-7 at halftime. They're up 24-10 going into the fourth quarter. Double-digit lead, and man, the Cardinal, it has just been struggle city for David Shaw, which I'm very surprised. Hasn't been too good for Stanford. Oregon State puts up 18 in the fourth quarter to Stanford's 3. They win it 28-27. Tanner McKee, he was 20 for 33, 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did throw an interception. Ben Gulbranson, because they have an injury at quarterback, does Oregon State. Ben Gulbranson was 20 for 29, 250 yards, and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They also did rush for 192 yards, led by Damian Martinez's 3 carries for 83 yards and 1 touchdown. Jam Griffin had 13 carries for 75 yards, and Deshaun Fenwick, 14 carries for 54 yards. 14 for 54 for Fenwick. No touchdowns for him. And then Jack Coletto had 3 carries, 5 yards, but he did have the other rushing touchdown. So, again, 192 yards rushing, 250 through the air, and no interceptions for Oregon State. Ryan Cooper Jr. had the interception, thrown by Oregon State, but Ryan Cooper Jr. intercepted Tanner McKee for Oregon State. They did have 1 sack. Like I said, Stanford rushed for only 90 yards. Casey Filkins got a lot of attempts, 21 carries, but for 62 yards, had a touchdown run. And Michael Wilson had 1 carry for 18 outside of that, but 90 yards rushing, 269 through the air. Again, 250 through the air for Washington. So 442 totally, or for Oregon State, 442 for Oregon State. They get the 28-10 victory. And like I said, Oregon State 1-2 as well in the Pac-12. They are 4-2 overall. Next week for the Beavers, they are hosting, like I said, Washington State up in Corvallis. So that'll be interesting to see what they can do. Again, 2 1-2 teams in the Pac-12. And for Stanford, who's still looking for their first conference win, they're 0-4. They are at Notre Dame. Again, their final out-of-conference game. They take on Notre Dame. They're in South Bend. That's a 7:30 Eastern kickoff, 4:30 here on the left coast on NBC. So, yes, they're out-of-conference game against Notre Dame, and then they follow up with ASU the week after that. So ASU gets a bye and then gets Stanford. So, we'll see what happens, but they are at Notre Dame. So it's a very solid. So, those are the games coming up, and we'll get to them on Friday. But, again, in review, it was USC. They dropped 1 spot in the rankings, but they beat Washington State, 30-14. to stay up top of the Pac-12. UCLA gets the huge win against Utah in the Rose Bowl. That's back-to-back weeks in the Rose Bowl, beating ranked teams for the Bruins. And Chip Kelly and his crew there, they beat Utah 42-32. Oregon, again, they were number 12. They demolished Arizona 49-22. Arizona State, yes, takes down number 21 Washington. Washington has the Blues, by the way, when they come to Tempe anyway. But the ASU wins 45-38. And then, like I said, Oregon State gets a 1-point victory over Stanford 28-27 overall. So, yeah, that's where they're at. And again, when we look at the rankings, lastly, when we look at the rankings again, Georgia went back to number 1. Ohio State is number 2. Alabama is number 3. They dropped 2 spots. Again, ridiculous. But okay, Clemson's at 4. Michigan at 5. Tennessee, they jumped 2 spots. They jumped over USC because they beat up a non-ranked LSU team at LSU because they're supposed to beat them, but they jumped USC. Anyway, USC's at 7. UCLA, like I said, they went from 18 to 11. Oregon won, but they stayed at 12. So, and then Utah went from 11 to 20. So those are the 4 Pac-12 teams in the top 20. But we'll get to more of that on Friday. Again, so glad you join us here. Join me here on Pac-12 in review. We'll have Pac-12 preview on Friday. Again, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. here on the left coast Pacific. And again, just want to shout out my Devils. Obviously, they beat Washington here. They took down number 21, and just a great atmosphere for it was a great atmosphere, a winning atmosphere there at Sun Devil Stadium. Fall break in the non-existent student section. I'll get to that on Friday too. But yeah, man, shout out to Coach Iguano, obviously getting his first win as interim head coach. And hey, they stack days. Let's see if they can keep stacking wins. But I'll see you Friday. Again, I want to thank everybody at Sideline Sports. My guy, JB Ellis, who watched a lot of pro football yesterday. Funny comment. And saw a lot of bad coaching decisions. I got to laugh out of that. But I want to thank JB Ellis. Obviously, my brother, Eric Wilson. Again, everything is a lot of stuff you see set up. Help me out. Everybody at Sideline Sports. I'll see you Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific. And we'll go over the upcoming games in the Pac-12. Until then, everybody enjoy your week. Enjoy Monday Night Football tonight. Root for the Conference of Champions. Forks up. And I will see you Friday.